What's going on, everybody? This is Team Coach Kareem here, and I'm coming at you guys live with a brand new upper body workout. I started off this session with a guillotine press, otherwise known as the neck press. It's a press that's done to your neck. Now, before you go thinking this is some super dangerous exercise, I want to let you guys know it is if you perform it incorrectly. But as you'll see here, I'm doing it with a really light weight, a really slow rep cadence, and most importantly, I have a spotter. So I really don't recommend you doing this unless you're trying to grow a big meaty chest like me. I also have an upper back injury, so that's sort of limiting the weight here as I'm rehabbing it. But you'll see that all you really need to perform this exercise correctly is you need to take a wide grip, press out with your elbows at a 90-degree angle, and really try to lower it in a straight vertical bar path towards your neck. And because of the insertion point of your pec at the humerus, otherwise known as your shoulder, you're really getting a full maximal stretch on this exercise. Once you start to get to failure and you feel like you don't have any reps left, that's when you can start really knocking out partials, which I like in particular. You'll see me here in a little bit just really try to get the most out of that stretched position. And that's what I like about the partials in particular, is that they're biasing that length and range. And so right here, I'm in a nice groove and pocket, and I'm just using all the force that I have to get that weight up. If you do this exercise, like I said, start light. Make sure you have your feet up either on the bench or in the air crossed, just so that you're not using any leg drive. This is not a heavy lift, quote unquote, Then I went over to hammer strength row. I like this rowing machine. Machines in general are preferable for most back movements just because they even out the resistance curve and it doesn't become as difficult at the top. One problem I have with this machine in particular that's really annoying is the angle at which you row. You'll see that my forearm is a little bit too far in. It should be more at like a 90 degree, since I'm really trying to target my rear delts and upper mid trap area. But this machine would actually probably be a little bit better for your lats, where you could go a little bit more narrow with the handle, just because of, like I said, it's not in good alignment with me. And that's the big problem with machines in general, is that a lot of machines you're just not properly aligned for. Especially if you go to like an Anytime Fitness or one of these more commercial gyms that don't have the proper like converting settings and all that like in the machine, it can be really problematic depending on your leverages and joint lengths and everything like that. But honestly, this machine feels pretty good. Like I feel like I'm in a good groove and pocket. I have that injury on that left side, so I'm not able to go as much. So what I do is typically I'll just start with the left side first and make sure I get as much reps on the right. I may have forgotten to do that on this set actually. But that's a good way for any of you guys out there that are like, well, I'm a little weaker on one side. Just start with the weaker side first. Get as many reps as you can, and then just match that on the other side. That's a pretty good way to go about it. You'll see other people recommend like, hey, why don't you add some reps for the weaker side? And for me, that doesn't really make much sense, just because the weaker side is likely going to be bigger. And that's just because there's a compensation going on there. You're weaker, so it has to pull. You have to exude more force to actually get that weight up, so then it grows more. So I just try and match reps there. This is a floor press. Come to think about it, I actually started this session with the floor press first, but when I was putting this all together, you can see I'm out of focus, so I didn't really like the idea of starting off the video with this. But this is a great combination because the floor press limits your range of motion. I'm only coming down to the floor, so I'm not getting that deep of a stretch. It's really, really shoulder friendly, even though I don't really have problems with my shoulders. But it's good to have programmed exercises that are going to put you in a shortened position with exercises that are going to put you in a more stretched out position. That's good for longevity. It's good for your shoulders. So in my thinking when I was going to this session, I was like, okay, I'm going to start with my floor press, and then my second press will be the guillotine one. And I had somebody comment on one of my shorts. Some people, they just, I don't know, they're idiots. So they're like, why would you do barbell bench after you do a dumbbell bench? You're so stupid. And I'm like, first of all, okay, if you don't like how I train or whatever, you don't need to comment, my man. This is just me giving my take on my training and how it's going and everything like that. But the second of all is like, for anyone who's tried it, it feels amazing to do a barbell bench after a dumbbell bench. And there's a reason John Meadows and a bunch of other bodybuilders recommend it, is because of it being less joint strenuous. You know, when you do the barbell variation, it is more strenuous on your joints. So if you can prime yourself for that by doing a dumbbell press first in your session, why wouldn't you do that? Plus, you're getting the deeper stretch. Plus, the dumbbell bench requires stabilization. So you hit that skill component first, and then you do the barbell bench later, unless you're a strength lifter or a power lifter. This is me doing some seal rows. I'm actually using like a silver era technique with this, populated by Vince Gironda, who also populated the first bench press that I did in this session. But basically, I'm fully extending everything as I row. So you see, like, I extend my back, I extend my hips, I bring my feet up. Basically, I'm arching everything like a seal. So this whole exercise is based on extension. So you fully contract everything up, everything from your tailbone to your feet to your upper back. And contrary to like a lot of the popular stuff going on in YouTube fitness right now, maybe not popular, but it's popular in like the niche sort of natural bodybuilding community of chest expansion and rib cage expansion, and how you should never be in extension, you should never be in flexion. I honestly think that these guys are all wrong about that issue. I think the Golden Era guys knew what they were doing. I think Arnold knew what they were doing when they were training in all three: extension, flexion, and with a neutral spine. And I try to incorporate all three of these modalities into my training. Because one thing that I realized from the injury is that when you're overdoing one pattern in anything, whether that's a movement pattern or whether that's a way that you lift, you're really hitting the same joint and its pressure point the same way every single time. So the more variation you have in your training, whether that's exercises, whether that's rotations, whatever way that you can add variation to your training will benefit you immensely. And so this is just one way. You know, I go to failure with this exercise and I rest 15 seconds and I go again. This whole workout, by the way, is done with one set, one all-out grinding set. I know Menser and all these guys are very popular on YouTube right now, and I would lie to say that, you know, that didn't inspire me in some way, but at the same time, I'm not a follower. You know, I don't follow any of these trends. If this guy, you know, if the content of this guy sort of just fell off and nobody was talking about Menser again, I would still be training like this just because this is working so well for me right now. I'm seeing progress all across the board. Doesn't mean that I won't add more volume over time, but I don't really need it. And even on something like this with the push-up where, you know, I'm not even using weight, and typically I would use this, do weighted push-ups and everything. I'm just getting as many reps as I can. I rest 15 seconds as a rest pause, and I continue it. I consider this all one set, just because it's a very slight rest pause. I count to 15 and then I go again. And I've progressed up. You know, the thing about this is it might not seem like the strength is there, but again, like I was coming back from an injury that I couldn't lift 20-pound dumbbells. And so this has just allowed me to like not overexert myself, because, you know, the volume does catch up. You hear on YouTube Fitness all the time, these guys who train with high volumes, they're doing 20 sets a week, 25 sets a week. And it's like, yeah, you can train like that for a given period of time, but it's going to catch up. It's going to catch up to you guys. All you guys out there doing 15, 20 sets, 25 sets, it'll catch up, because it caught up to me. You know, I was doing 20 to 25 sets a week per muscle, and then I just got these nagging pains in my upper back, and then boom. And what I've realized is that you don't need that much to grow, especially when you're training with high intensity, because I was training hard and I was training with higher volumes. But you realize, you know, look, like on something like a rear delt fly, like if you're really going to go all out, you might be able to do like 2, you know, sets, but your performance will dip immensely on that third set if you're going all out. But especially on a big compound movement, you put a lot of energy and effort into one set. Heck, if I do one set of squats, which I did the other day, Hatfield squats, decent weight, pushed it all the way, you're not going to replicate that effort, which is fine. But just know that if you've already gotten the stimulus that you need from one set, why would you do a second? You know, it's like if I've already accomplished the task, which was taxing my muscles, right, stimulating muscle growth, why would I need a second? And then I even prefer, like, if I need more, I'll go ahead and get that growth in through some other exercise. That way, at least the pressure point is different. At least the joint stress is different, because if you're repeating the same exercise for multiple sets, you're repeating that exact same stress on this joint. And there's also an idea here about like muscle growth in general, which is if you get a different angle or a different exercise, that can open up new gains. Anyway, back to the training. I was doing these. I love these curls. I started doing them a few weeks ago. I think people really overlook lever mechanics when it comes to training, you see, because if I'm doing this lift with a dumbbell on an incline, I'll get a stretch at the bottom, but there's not going to be any tension there. You'll feel it. Now, obviously, you'll feel it, but the real sticking point of the lift is once you get your arms higher. This isn't like that. You are now being taxed in the lengthened position. And the more I do exercise like this, the more I feel my muscles sore the next day, which is a really good sign. But you just have to make sure that the handles behind you are stacked even with your hands. Not like a lot of people put them too low, but even if you're doing the standard like a Bayesian curl, just have the handles be perpendicular, like horizontally straight with your hands. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but you can see here, and this will just really make it very hard in the bottom. You hear some studies, the biceps don't benefit from stretch mediated hypertrophy. Again, I don't know if I believe that, just because of how sore my biceps are the next day after doing exercise like this. But then I went ahead and now this is contrary to what I just said. This isn't the greatest stretch, right? I'm using the floor. I'm limiting it. I'm just going for basically a pump. I don't know if I got like 18 reps or something like this with these rolling dumbbell extensions, lightweight. But my upper back strain debilitated my left tricep. And I couldn't really do anything with that either, just because your lats are connected to your triceps. But I slowly but surely built it up with some cables work, and now I'm getting back to the dumbbells, and this is a really good transition. So if anybody's like, I'm having some sort of limitation, these are really, really shoulder and elbow friendly. But more importantly than that, I'm always working on the long head. As somebody who's bodybuilding, you're always trying to get that thick, meaty long head, just because that's the biggest part. But what you neglect is some of these more pressing type of variations that focus on like the short head, like right under that elbow right there. And if you can get that area to be beefy, you're going to improve your pressing strength. And if your pressing strength goes up, guess what else is going up? It's going to be your chest and your front delts. And so a variation like this could be something that you include to really build up your triceps in a way that also help your other like bigger muscles. And I basically do this after every single tricep exercise. Now I'm just doing some close grip pressing, and if you do this, you're gonna feel like the medial head of your tricep, right? Like just firing like crazy. And I really recommend, like, if you're ever doing these dumbbell variations or a barbell skull crusher or something like that, that you pump out as many close grip presses afterwards. I missed out because I did not do this for so long, and I would just terminate my sets, even though I knew this. And that was a mistake. That was definitely a mistake. Here I am doing some single arm upright rows. Great exercise. Great exercise. I think that, I haven't done many upright rows in the past, mainly because, there's a lot of fear mongering going on. Obviously, if you do them close grip, they'll be like, oh, that's externally rotating your shoulders and bad for your shoulders and everything. But if you take a wide grip on a barbell or a Smith machine, or if you do them single arm with a dumbbell, you can avoid that precarious position. Now, I will say doing it on the left arm for me doesn't feel as good, because that's the side of the body that I typically have some issues with. But it works just fine, as long as I do it slow and in control. And then I'll come here and I'll do some cheat reps actually after I finish up. And I love doing cheat reps for things like lateral raises, rear delt raises, or upright rows. It just seems like shoulder isolations and cheat reps were like a match made in heaven for whatever reason. But yeah, so the upright rows are definitely a good addition to the program. Right now I'm rotating them in with like lateral raises. So I'll switch them back and forth, but I do feel like the lateral raises do hit your side delts better. Here I'm doing some neck work. Just skip past that real quick because who wants to watch people do neck work? But it is kind of important, you know. I think it can be overblown sometimes, but it's good to have the full tie-in of your physique. If you have a pencil neck, it's necessary. This is way more important to me, but I just get lazy with doing forearm work. But it's definitely a weak area. It's one of my biggest weak areas, actually. I just can't seem to prioritize it. There's something that's just kind of like boring. Can I say that? Can I say forearm work is boring? Because it really is, man. It really is. But it feels good after. It's like, oh, okay, I got like it's like I did my veggies, kind of. But that particular variation, the gooseneck forearm wrist curl that I was doing right before these extensions that I'm doing here on screen with a kettlebell, that's a great exercise. That's my favorite forearm exercise. And these are some extensions. You can do them with a barbell. I might even prefer doing it with a barbell, but you can plateau on those really quickly. I feel like this is a little bit more progressible for me, even though that could just be because I've been doing it for like 3 weeks now. But yeah, those are good. I hope you guys like this video, and please subscribe if you're not already. Hit that like button, and I'll catch you guys next time.